Remember when kitchens weren't just rooms with expensive appliances, but workshops of pure culinary genius? When every tool had a story and cooking was an art passed down through generations? Today, we're rediscovering 18 kitchen gadgets our grandparents swore by, and honestly, we were fools to abandon them. From butter that required actual effort to spices that demanded respect, these tools didn't just make food, they made memories. Before butter came neatly wrapped, making it was a family ritual that built character, one arm aching turn at a time. My grandmother's wooden churn stood as a monument to patience, letting me take turns at the handle while learning that good things truly take time. Butter churning wasn't just a chore, it was a performance. Kids would compete for turns, the rhythmic thumping creating a soundtrack of family life. There's an old farmer's saying, if you want to learn patience, churn butter. Technically simple, agitate cream until fat separates from buttermilk, but watching that transformation felt like kitchen magic. Today, we just toss a stick of butter in the pan, but our grandparents earned every golden pat through muscle and method. Which kitchen task do you think would be most challenging without modern tools? Drop your thoughts in the comments. But butter was just the beginning of kitchen precision. Wait until you see how they mastered the art of separating eggs. Before these ingenious little devices, separating eggs was a high-stakes juggling act. One slip, and your pristine egg white became a yolky mess that could ruin an entire recipe. My Aunt Ruth's porcelain chicken-shaped separator was her kitchen's sacred artifact. Invented in the 1920s, these weren't just about convenience, they were about precision. During the Great Depression, when every ingredient counted, these gadgets ensured not a single drop was wasted. Families couldn't afford mistakes. The design was beautifully simple. Strategically placed slits that allowed egg whites to slip through while holding the yolk captive. It transformed amateur bakers into near professionals, making delicate meringues and angel food cakes suddenly achievable for home cooks. Bakers, what's the most finicky cooking technique you've mastered? Tell us in the comments. Speaking of precision, our grandparents took the same meticulous approach to preparing their meat. The hand-crank meat grinder wasn't just a tool, it was a family tradition that clamped onto kitchen counters and hearts alike. My grandfather's cast-iron grinder would transform Sunday's leftover roasts into the week's ground beef, and everyone had a role to play. Grinding meat at home was a point of pride. You knew exactly what went into your burger, pure, honest food, with no mystery ingredients or fillers. Kids would argue over who got to turn the crank, turning meal prep into a competitive family event. Modern prepackaged ground beef might be convenient, but it can't compete with the satisfaction of meat ground with your own two hands and the stories shared while doing it. Every turn of the handle was a lesson in self-sufficiency. If you're loving these vintage kitchen secrets, hit that subscribe button. We've got more forgotten innovations coming. From grinding meat to perfecting flour, every ingredient demanded respect and the right technique. Every serious baker's secret weapon, the flour sifter. My grandmother swore it was the key to her legendary cakes that seemed to float on air. She'd pour flour into the metal canister, turn the handle with practiced precision, and watch a soft, snowy cloud fall into the bowl below. Sifters did more than break up lumps. They aerated flour, making cakes lighter and cookies fluffier. During the 1950s, when boxed cake mixes began taking over American kitchens, the humble sifter reminded everyone that homemade still meant something special. Today, most recipes skip sifting entirely, treating flour like any other ingredient. But if you've ever had a dense, uneven cake that disappointed everyone at the table, you know why Grandma never skipped this crucial step. There's something oddly satisfying about being part of a secret baking society. Have you ever used a tool that your grandparents swore by? Share your family's kitchen wisdom below. But flour wasn't the only ingredient that required special handling. Potatoes had their own magical transformation tool. Ever had mashed potatoes so smooth they could double as silk? Thank the potato ricer, a gadget that transformed humble spuds into culinary magic that made guests beg for the recipe. Looking like a giant garlic press, you'd load boiled potatoes and squeeze, forcing them through tiny holes that created the perfect texture. My mom's battered ricer was a family legend. She'd let me help, and I'd pretend I was crushing mountains as potatoes squished through in perfect ribbons. Modern electric mixers might be convenient, but they often turn potatoes gluey and disappointing. The ricer is proof that sometimes old-fashioned really is better, creating mashed potatoes that were pure, fluffy perfection that melted on your tongue. Cooking enthusiasts, what vintage kitchen tool do you wish would make a comeback? Let us know in the comments. From perfect potatoes to preserving bread, our grandparents had storage solutions we've completely forgotten. Before preservatives and plastic bags, the bread box was the kitchen's unsung hero that kept families fed and happy. My grandmother's gleaming chrome model with a roll-top lid was more than storage. It was a statement of home and hospitality. Bread boxes weren't just practical. They kept loaves fresh, safe from pets and hungry siblings who couldn't resist sneaking slices. A well-stocked bread box meant your home was welcoming, your table always ready for unexpected guests who might drop by. Today, we toss bread in the fridge or freezer, losing something special in our quest for convenience. There's magic in reaching into a bread box, feeling the weight of a fresh loaf that makes even a simple sandwich feel like a celebration of home. And speaking of daily deliveries, remember when milk came to your door? That required its own special tool. Raise your hand if you've ever struggled with a stubborn milk bottle cap. Back when milk came in thick glass bottles delivered fresh to your doorstep, the milk bottle opener was as essential as a can opener. My neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, had a collection hanging by the door, each one worn smooth from daily use. She'd chat with the milkman every morning, opener in hand, ready for the day's delivery. These openers were more than tools. They were symbols of community connection. Daily milk delivery was a chance to catch up on neighborhood news, swap recipes, and connect with neighbors in ways we've completely lost. Today's cartons and plastic jugs might be convenient, but they've eliminated that personal touch that made mornings special. From daily milk to seasonal treats, summer brought its own kitchen challenges that required ingenious solutions. Cherry pies and stained fingers were a thing of the past, thanks to the cherry pitter that turned messy work into satisfying precision. My grandmother's little metal marvel could pit a whole bowl of cherries in minutes, transforming a dreaded task into something almost meditative. These gadgets were especially popular during canning season, when families would preserve summer's bounty for long winter months. I'd sneak cherries while helping the pitter, making a satisfying pop with each perfect cherry that emerged pit-free and ready for pie. Today, most people buy pitted cherries or skip the pie altogether, missing out on that connection to the seasons. But if you've ever tasted a homemade cherry pie made from fresh fruit, you know why Grandma went to all that trouble and why this little tool was worth its weight in gold. Summer also meant fresh corn, and our grandparents had that figured out too. Fresh corn off the cob, no knife required, and no kernels flying across the kitchen. My uncle's handheld corn stripper looked like a cross between a peeler and a comb, zipping kernels off in perfect rows during summer barbecues. Corn strippers were harvest season heroes that brought families together. Neighbors would gather on porches, swap stories, and put up corn for the winter months ahead. It was more than a tool. It was a community event, a way of preserving summer's bounty and strengthening bonds. Today, most people buy frozen corn or struggle with a knife, missing the satisfaction of the perfect tool for the job. But the old stripper was a reminder that sometimes the simplest innovations are the most brilliant, turning a potentially tedious task into something almost magical. Which of these ingenious tools has surprised you the most so far? Drop a comment below and let me know. And if you're enjoying this trip down memory lane, hit that subscribe button. We've got even more vintage stories coming your way. Jello molds were more than dessert. They were the centerpiece of every family gathering that could make or break a hostess's reputation. My grandmother would unveil her latest creation with pride, complete with suspended fruit, marshmallows, and sometimes even shrimp that somehow worked. These weren't just desserts. They were edible art that required skill, timing, and nerves of steel. Kids loved the bright colors and wiggly textures, while adults appreciated the nostalgia and effort involved. There was even an old cookbook saying, "A party without a Jello mold is just a meeting." Today, Jello molds are a retro novelty that appears at themed parties. But if you've ever tried to unmold one without complete disaster, you know it was truly an art form, a delicious piece of culinary history that demanded respect. From wiggly desserts to fresh morning juice, our grandparents worked for their refreshment. Before electric juicers cluttered our countertops, the hand-pressed citrus juicer turned Saturday mornings into a workout and a treat rolled into one. My grandfather's heavy glass model with a ridged center would transform oranges into the freshest juice imaginable, one squeeze at a time. Citrus juicers were daily staples, especially in warmer climates where fresh juice was a morning ritual. The process was part meditation, part exercise, cutting oranges in half and squeezing until every precious drop was extracted, your hands sticky with natural oils. Modern juicers might be faster and more efficient, but there's something about the old-fashioned method that makes the juice taste sweeter. Maybe it's the effort invested, or maybe it's just pure nostalgia for simpler times. From sweet citrus to warming spices, let's explore how our grandparents treated every flavor with reverence. The nutmeg grater was a tiny tool that brought massive flavor to Grandma's kitchen and taught us that the best things come in small packages. Nutmeg wasn't just a spice, it was an experience that could transform an ordinary dessert into something magical. My mom's small tin grater lived in a special drawer, treated like the precious tool it was. She'd let me grate nutmeg for holiday desserts, and the aroma was intoxicating, warm, spicy, and comforting in a way that pre-ground spice could never match. Nutmeg graters date back to the 1700s and were prized possessions that some families passed down through generations. Some were so beautifully crafted they were considered status symbols. Today, most people buy pre-ground nutmeg, but if you've never grated your own, you're missing out on a tiny ritual that makes a big difference. What's the most unusual spice tool in your kitchen right now? Drop a comment and let us know. And if you're loving this journey through vintage kitchen innovations, hit that subscribe button for more forgotten wisdom. From spicy nutmeg to creamy clouds, let's explore the hand crank cream whipper that required no electricity, just patience and elbow grease. My grandma's whipper was a glass jar with metal beaters that promised sweet rewards for those willing to work. She'd let me take a turn at the handle, teaching me that good things take time and effort. It took patience, but the reward was literally sweet. Fresh whipped cream for pies, hot chocolate, or just a sneaky spoonful when no one was looking. Cream whippers date back to the early 1900s and were a staple in every well-equipped kitchen. They made desserts feel special and reminded us that good things take time. Today, we grab a can from the fridge, but the old whipper is a reminder to slow down and savor both the process and the result. From whipped cream to apple magic, some tools made tedious tasks feel like entertainment. The apple peeler corer was a game changer that turned pie making from drudgery into family entertainment. Peeling apples by hand for a whole pie, not when you had one of these mechanical marvels that made short work of any apple harvest. My siblings and I would fight for a turn at the crank, mesmerized as the gadget would peel, core, and slice apples in one continuous motion. The machine would transform a mountain of fruit into neat spirals that looked almost too perfect to eat. Apple peelers were symbols of American ingenuity, solving a tedious chore with a bit of mechanical magic that made everyone want to help. Today, we have electric versions, but the old hand crank model is still the most satisfying. It transformed pie making from a chore into a family event that created memories along with dessert. But not every vintage tool was about major meal prep. Sometimes the smallest gadgets solve the most annoying problems. Our next gadget proves that sometimes the smallest tools make the biggest difference in daily life. The pickle picker might seem silly to modern eyes, but it solved a genuinely sticky problem that every pickle lover understood. Why risk messy, briny fingers when you could spear your snack with a spring-loaded gadget designed specifically for the job? My cousin had one shaped like a tiny fork, perfect for fishing out pickles without getting brined everywhere or dropping them back into the jar. Pickle pickers might be rare today, but they're a reminder that sometimes it's the little inventions that make life sweeter, or in this case, saltier. They represent an era when people cared enough about small annoyances to create elegant solutions. Speaking of small but mighty tools, let's explore 3 more forgotten gadgets that deserve a comeback. Before we grabbed whatever round object was handy, the proper biscuit cutter was a kitchen essential that separated amateur bakers from the pros. My grandmother's fluted edge cutter created perfect rounds that rose evenly and looked bakery beautiful. These weren't just about aesthetics. The sharp, clean cut sealed the edges properly, helping biscuits rise tall and fluffy instead of lopsided and dense. The fluted edges weren't just pretty. They created more surface area for that perfect golden brown crust everyone fought over. Real biscuit cutters came in sets of different sizes, and serious bakers knew exactly which size for which occasion. Today, we use drinking glasses or cookie cutters. But there's something about the proper tool that makes even store-bought biscuit dough behave better. It's proof that sometimes specialized tools really do make a difference. From perfect biscuits to preserved vegetables, our grandparents had tools for every season and purpose. Long before food processors, the kraut cutter was the secret weapon for making perfect sauerkraut and coleslaw that actually tasted homemade. This wooden board with an adjustable metal blade could slice cabbage into uniform ribbons that fermented evenly and looked professional. My German neighbor, Mrs. Schmidt, would bring hers out every fall, turning cabbage cutting into a neighborhood event. The rhythmic scraping sound meant winter preparations were underway, and everyone knew they'd be invited to taste the results in a few weeks. Kraut cutters required technique, the right pressure, the perfect angle, and steady hands to avoid the wickedly sharp blade. But the results were worth it. Perfectly uniform shreds that made restaurant-quality sauerkraut and coleslaw that put store-bought versions to shame. It was a tool that demanded respect and rewarded skill. From preserving vegetables to serving them elegantly, every aspect of food had its specialized tool. Our final forgotten gadget might seem overly specific, but asparagus tongs solved a real problem that anyone who's tried to serve asparagus gracefully understands. These specialized tongs were designed to grip delicate spears without crushing them or letting them slip back onto the platter. Victorian and Edwardian hostesses considered proper asparagus service a mark of sophistication. These gadgets weren't just tools, they were symbols of ingenuity, resourcefulness, and a little bit of kitchen magic. Our grandparents made the most of what they had, solving everyday problems with clever inventions and a dash of creativity. As technology marches on, it's easy to forget the joy of doing things the old-fashioned way. But maybe it's time we brought a few of these back, not just for nostalgia, but for the sense of connection, tradition, and pride they represent. Quick challenge for you. Which of these 18 kitchen gadgets would you love to see make a comeback? What tool from your grandmother's era do you miss the most? Drop your memories in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to Vintage America Tales, where we keep these incredible stories of American innovation alive. Until next time, keep those kitchen memories burning bright.